Welcome to Mr. Chalk's Revision Tips. In this video, we will look at transport systems in dicotyledonous plants, xylems and phloems. So, xylem cells are what transport water around the plant. So, xylem vessels are composed of two different types of cells. Xylem vessels are tubes, right? Most importantly, xylem vessels are hollow tubes. And it's important that they're hollow tubes in order for water to be able to move through them. So each of them is made up of a vertical row of cells from when the protoplasm and the transverse walls disappear. Right, so the lignin precipitated on the inner surfaces, so the lignin is what's forming the strengthening part, changes themselves into long, wide vessels through which water and salts are transported. So the vessels range in length from a few centimetres to several metres. So each triage is composed of one cell in which the protoplasm has disappeared and the cell walls have been lignified. So a xylem is specialised for transporting water and salts, primarily from the root to the leaves. Right, phloems, right, also called sieve tubes, right? So these sieve tubes result from cells being compacted vertically above each other when their nuclei vanishes and the separating walls between them become perforated. The important thing is the fact that they have no nuclei and the walls are perforated, so there are small holes. So there you can see the small holes between them. They're called sieve tubes because the cytoplasm passes through in the form of cytoplasmic strands. The sieve tubes are adjacent to companion cells, which provide the sieve tubes with the energy required to perform their function, because they've got no organelles and no nuclei and such forth of their own. The phloem transports nutrients resulted from photosynthesis in the leaves to other parts of the plant. Right? So maybe from the leaves all the way down to the roots. So, if we're looking at outlining the similarities between xylem and phloem vessels, some of the key things I'd say that both are forms of vascular tissues that are involved in the transportation of substances. Both are made up of more than one type of cell. The living parts of the cells and the components of the xylem have both kind of disappeared as such. Blast fibres, dead cells, surround the xylem as well as the phloem. Both primary and secondary growth is found in xylem and phloem, and the precursor to both tissues is procambium that remains undifferentiated during primary xylem and phloem formation. So transpiration, just to remind you, is the process by which moisture is carried through the plants from the roots to the small pores on the underside of the leaves, where it changes into vapour and leaves the leaf and is released into the atmosphere. So transpiration is essentially evaporation of water from the leaves into the air. So the amount of water that a plant transpires varies greatly geographically over time. Right? There are a number of different factors that determine transpiration rate. So temperature is one of the main ones. So transpiration rates increase or go up as the temperature goes up, especially during the growth season when the air is warmer due to stronger sunlight and warmer air. High temperatures cause the plant cells which control the openings of the stomata where the water is released into the atmosphere to open, whereas in colder temperatures those openings are closed. Relative humidity, so the relative humidity of the air surrounding the plant rate changes the rate of transpiration, so it's easier for water to evaporate into drier air than it is into more saturated air because it's moving down the concentration gradient. Wind and air movement increased movement of air around the plant will result in a high rate of transpiration. So wind will move the air with the result that more saturated air comes close to the leaf is replaced by drier air. Soil moisture availability. So when the moisture is lacking, the plants can begin to descend and transpiration lowers because of this. The type of plant, so transpiration varies between plant and plant. So plants transpire water at different rates. Some plants which grow in arid regions, such as cacti and succulents, conserve precious water by transpiring less over time. Right, translocation. So translocation occurs within a series of cells known as a phloem pathway or phloem transport system, with the phloem being the principal food conducting tissue in vascular plants. Nutrients are translocated in the phloem as solutes in a solution called phloem sap. So translocation is the movement of materials from the leaves to other tissues throughout the plant. Plants produce carbohydrates, which are sugars, in their leaves by photosynthesis, but non-photosynthetic parts of the plant also require carbohydrates in order to go and survive. For this reason, nutrients are translocated from sources where they are made to sinks where they are needed. Some important sinks are roots, flowers, fruits, stems, and developing leaves. The tissue in which the nutrients move in the phloem is called the phloem surveillance. So the phloem is arranged in long continuous strands called vascular bundles that extend through the roots and the stem and reach all the way to the leaves as veins. And vascular bundles also contain Xylem tissue. So this is the tissue that carries dissolved minerals from the roots to the shoots. When plants increase in diameter, so this is secondary growth, they do so by divisions of the layer of cells just under the bark. So this cell layer makes a new xylem to the inside and the thin continual cylinder of new phloem on the outside of the plant. So, one theory of translocation states that organic substances are pushed from a high pressure in the leaves to a low pressure in the roots. Describe how a high pressure is produced in the leaves. Some key things that you need to talk about is the fact that water potential becomes lower because more more sugar goes and enters the phloem. So water therefore enters the phloem by osmosis. So this increased volume causes an increase in water pressure. So just to finish off then, transport systems in plants look slightly different at different points in the plant. So in leaves, the vascular bundles are located among spongy mesophyll. So the xylem is orientated towards the surface of the leaf, usually the upper side. The phloem is orientated towards the lower side. So in stem tissue, so the xylem is located in the roots, stems and leaves of the plant, and it transports water and materials from plant's roots. So the phloem goes and it forms these vascular bundles as shown in that diagram, where the xylem are found on the inner part of the vessel, and the phloem is on the outer part. And in root tissue, the phloem is mainly used to transport nutrients from a region of production to the region that needs it or stores the nutrients. So in photosynthesis, these carbohydrates are made, so it's transported back down through the phloem to the roots. So you can see there the arrangement of xylem in the roots in comparison to the arrangement of a phloem.
Thanks for watching.